Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new, my name is Carlie. I am a knitter and yarn dyer coming to you from Calgary, Alberta. Today we have a typical knitting podcast style episode for you all today. So I have a couple of finished objects, some whips to talk about as well, and then near the end of the episode I will be announcing of the winner from last episode's giveaway. So if you entered that giveaway in the last episode, be sure to stay tuned till the end because I'll be announcing the winner. So we have a lot to get through today, but before we get started on all of the whips and finished objects, I'll just talk briefly about what I'm wearing. This is a somewhat recent finished object. This is my cloud sweater by Petite Knit. It was my first time knitting a women's pattern from Petite Knit, and I knit this in discontinued yarn. It is the Drop Swish. I think it was color 10. It's just this, what color is this? Oh my gosh, like mulberry. It's a mulberry color. I believe it is color 10, but again, it's discontinued, so it doesn't matter too much anyway. But it's Drop Swish. It was one that I was really playing yarn chicken with. I ended up being okay, and I have a cropped sweater with some 3/4 length sleeves, but I really love it, and it turned out just fine. So I've been getting a little bit of wear out of this. I kind of have some other newer sweaters that I've been wearing a bit more, but overall I am pretty happy with this piece, and I do think I would make it again. And the main thing that I love about this sweater is actually just the color. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, but it turned out really nice. It's super comfortable. It's positive, lots of positive ease, some nice wide sleeves. And yeah, I'm happy with it. Let's start with some finished objects. So I have about 3, I think, finished objects, and they are smaller pieces. I've just been kind of working on some smaller little projects here and there along the last couple of weeks because I actually launched my online yarn shop last Friday. And before I get too far into everything, first off, thank you so much for all of your support, whether you just followed my new Instagram page or checked out my website or even purchased some yarn. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. I can't even tell you how happy and like supported and loved I felt that last week. So thank you all so much. It means the world to me. But yeah, because I was launching that shop and getting orders out and just a lot of excitement and a lot of energy, I was kind of just picking away on some smaller pieces, along with a bigger piece that I'll show later, but it was pretty mindless. So I kind of have just like some simple projects to show today, but all of them I'm super excited about. I'm super happy to have in my wardrobe, and all of them I think it's safe to say that I've just been really enjoying the process. So the first finished object is one that you have seen before if you watched the last episode, which was me going through all of the colorways that will be in the shop. But in the last podcast episode, these were just a half finished object. So I have these mock cable socks done. Whoops, I've lost one. There we go. I have these mock cable socks done, and I just, oh my gosh, I keep dropping them. What is wrong with me? I really enjoyed knitting these, and I love wearing them. I've been wearing them almost every day for like 2 weeks. So they look a little bit worn. I have washed them since, but I've also worn them since washing them. So these are just a pair of self-drafted cuff to toe knit socks. It's basically just 2x2 ribbing with some mock cable detailing in there, and if you haven't done mock cables, it's basically just really simple base knitting. And then I did a short row heel, which is my go-to heel. It just is one that I can do off by heart. I don't have to reference anything, and it's just a really quick heel for me. It also fits me really nicely, so that's always what I default to. And then I just did plain stockinette on the bottom. And I think it's really safe to say that these are by far my favorite socks I've ever knit, and just because I loved the process of them, I love the look of them, but I also love how they fit because of that 2x2 ribbing, but they're just a little bit more elevated with that mock cable detail. And this yarn is actually my yarn. It's the Lichen colorway, which I just restocked last night. If you're interested, this one sold out pretty quickly, and so I added just a few more skeins to the shop because I had just enough material to dye up a few more skeins of this colorway. So if you're interested, this is what it looks like in stockinette. It's a really soft green base with some dark green and some brown speckles in there. And then I thought it paired really nicely with this simple texture. The speckles aren't too overpowering that you lose the texture, so I thought it worked really nicely. So yeah, this is my first finished object. It took me from February 9th to the 14th, and I am so excited to eventually cast on more mock cable socks. I think they're just going to be my favorite going forward for some socks that are a little bit more elevated than a vanilla or even a ribbed sock. So yeah, highly recommend doing some mock cable socks if you like the look of this. My next finished object is another pair of socks actually. I don't have them here to share with you in person, but I will put up a picture, and I knit these for my sister. I actually originally knit them for her mother-in-law, but then I ended up making her something else. So I started these back in August, I think, and then I just finished them about a week or two ago. So I had one sock done really quickly back in August, and then I realized that I knit them too short. I did a afterthought heel, and then I just realized for the recipient they were going to be too short because they were even tight on me, and the recipient has larger feet than I do. So I put them away for a while. I was just annoyed. I didn't want to have to rip back the toe and lengthen the foot. But then the other day, my sister was saying how much she really loved her Christmas present, which was some hand knit socks for myself. And she wears them all the time. She loves wearing them to bed. They're the only thing that keeps her feet warm. So I thought, I'm going to pull out those striped socks again, and I'm going to fix the length. I added length to the first sock, and then I knit the second sock. And all good to go. They fit her perfectly. I'm so glad she has them. And they were really fun to knit because it was self-striping, and this yarn was from Mud Punch yarn, and the color is Bean Sleeves. So really beautiful self-striping yarn. Mud Punch, I believe, is based out of BC, so a Canadian yarn dyer. If you are looking to support Canadian businesses at the moment, definitely check her out. She has so many beautiful colorways, and I just love knitting a self-striping sock. It's one of those really fun, addictive things. It's also really easy to keep track of the length of your socks, because you can just count, like once you're done the first sock, you can just count the stripes of how many stripes you knit, and then do that for the second sock. You don't have to go back and actually knit or count the rows. So I love that part of a self-striping too, as long as the stripes for each color, the rows for each color are the same amount for what am I trying to say? The number of rows for each color are the same amount for each stripe, then you can use the stripe as a counting tool. Does that make sense? It does in my brain. Anyways, those were really fun. Like I said, I just did an afterthought heel. I knit them cuff down, and then the contrast for the heel, cuff, and toes was just some of my own naturally hand-dyed yarn that I had in stash for a really long time that I thought matched the self-striping yarn pretty well, so it just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, really happy with those socks. Great yarn dyer, so definitely check out Mud Punch yarns. And yeah, those are all the socks that I have for this episode. And the next finished object is a really fun one, something kind of different for me, and this is the Hapkerchief by Gudrun Johnston. I knit this is a really quick knit. I think it was, February 20th to the 22nd, so I definitely could have done it in 2 days, but I think it took 3. On the third day, I spent like half an hour on it, maybe just doing the bind off. Definitely could have done it in 2 days, and it's a really quick knit. It's kind of an addictive knit for me anyway, and this is the Hapkerchief. So if you watched my last episode introducing all of the yarn colorways, you'll have seen this before, but it may have looked a little bit different. I'll put the original picture up here on the screen, and you can see how different it looks. So I really loved the original one. I thought it was really fun and bright and cheery, and I really enjoyed working with those colors and knitting on it. However, I just knew that I wasn't going to wear it. It wasn't my color palette. And I've just kind of been playing with some yarn colorways and experimenting with some different dyes and seeing how they look and how they work up and all of that fun stuff. So since this was an experiment anyway, I decided I was going to do an iron dip. So I just dipped this whole thing in iron to make it a little bit moodier, a little bit toned down and muted, and I really love it. It's definitely more my style now, something that I actually see myself wearing. I'll put it on here. And it just goes with a lot more of my pieces that I have in my wardrobe. Like even this sweater, I think it looks really pretty. So yeah, that was really fun. It's worked bottom up and it's garter stitch, as you can see, but it's in the round. But there are two options. So you can either do garter in the round, so you're knitting one way, purling the other, or you can do short rows so that you're knitting every single round. I did a combination of both. I just wanted to see how I would enjoy it doing both ways. So from the very bottom all the way to the last color change, I did it in the round, so I was knitting and then purling. And then from the last color change all the way to the bind off edge, I did short rows and knit every round, and I definitely enjoyed that more. But it was just kind of cool to see both sides of it and how it changes your experience of knitting the project. And this, to create this wavy bottom down here, it is some really simple lace knitting, and oh yeah, it's both written and charted. I followed the written instructions. The chart was, I was following it from my phone, and the chart was so small on my phone, so I did the written instructions, and it's really simple lace. It's really fun to do, and I believe there are 4 colors used with this Hapkerchief, but you could definitely go ahead and do a 1-color version, 2-color, 3 colors. Basically, the sky's the limit. I would love to do some other versions and maybe try a 2-color one, or even just a 1-color, I think is great. The original pattern calls for, I think it's Jameson and Smith, if that's the correct yarn, and it is a fingering weight yarn, but I think it's a bit more stiff than my yarn. So mine is BFL, and BFL naturally has quite a bit of drape to it. So even though, I mean, it is standing up quite nicely, but it definitely doesn't stand up as stiff as a lot of the projects do on Ravelry, because a lot of people use the recommended yarn, and same with Gudrun. Johnston's version, hers stands up quite a bit. Mine's a bit more relaxed and drapey, but I just kind of wanted to see how this BFL yarn would work in a pattern like this and with a larger gauge, because I believe it uses, maybe it's a 5 or a 5.5 millimeter needle, and typically I'm knitting this yarn on a 2.25 for socks, or you know, some like larger needle sizes, but not as large as a 5 or a 5.5 millimeter. So it was just cool to see how the yarn knit up in that way and how much it would bloom after blocking and fill in some of those gaps. And I think it's really nice. So I would like to experiment a little bit more and see what other projects I can do with a bit of a larger gauge. But yeah, I really recommend this pattern. It's really fun, really enjoyable. It's quick. I actually would love to knit up some of these for some future gift knits for Christmas or birthdays. I think it's a really good option. And then, like I said, you could play around with so many different color combinations, or even use a lot of scraps. I think this would be great for a scrappy project. But yeah, I'm really happy with this one, and I really want to do some more Gudrun Johnston patterns, specifically her shawls. I think they're really beautiful. Okay, those are all the finished objects for today. Now I have, I think, 3 whips to talk about. And let's start one that I don't think I've shown at all on here. So I've talked about it a little bit, that I was planning on casting this on, and this is the Wabi Sabi Cardi by Milena Juhola. and I started this on February 22nd, and I am using some yarn that has been in my stash for quite a while, so I'm really excited that I'm getting some yarn out of my stash. And this is the Sadness Garn Fritteds Garn. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and there you go. There you can see the label. It's just a really soft heathered neutral color. It is color 3021. I am afraid I'm playing yarn checking here. I only have 4 of these left, and I have 2 sleeves to do and a button band and a collar, so I suspect that I will have to be buying some more yarn here soon. However, thankfully, unlike this sweater, this is not discontinued yarn. Well, at least I think it's not discontinued, but I did look where I purchased it before and it's still there, so I should be able to find some no problem. Anyways, I have quite a bit of this done. I haven't been able to work on it for about the past week just because some crazy things were happening. So I haven't been able to work on it, but I do have the whole body done. And here is the cardigan. No sleeves, no button band yet, so it's curling in, but it's a drop shoulder constructed from the top down. And what really drew me to this was that it has some really like simple shaping and really like classic cardigan look, but it has a beautiful lateral braid that goes around the middle of the body and then also at the bottom, or right at the top of the ribbing for the bottom. And then that lateral braid will also be in the middle of the sleeve and then at the bottom of the sleeve as well, just before the ribbing. So it's just a cardigan that I think I'm going to get so much wear out of. It's a really simple design, however, it's just one that I know is going to be a staple for me and one that will be really practical. And I've been kind of wanting more of those pieces, although that may be a bit more boring for all of you to see. I felt like last year I was playing a lot with color and a lot of fun pieces, but I'm not wearing them as much as I would like to. So I'm just trying to focus a bit more on having some staple pieces and definitely having some pieces that are somewhat neutral so that I can just wear them with a lot more things and kind of feel like I can wear them a lot more often because they're not as loud. So this is one of those pieces for me. This is also a pattern that I've had in my queue for a really long time. And so when that happens, I also know that it's a good decision to cast on because I've been thinking about it for that long that I know that I'm not going to change my mind. Whereas sometimes some of those like spur of the moment, spontaneous cast-ons, they're really fun and enjoyable at the moment, but then I find that it was just kind of like a thing I was excited about for maybe a month and then I didn't feel drawn to wearing it after knitting it. So I know that will not be the case for this one. Another thing about this cardigan is that you have to knit the button band afterwards. You go and pick up the stitches, and that is something that I was talking about in a couple of episodes previously, that I really don't enjoy doing that, and I'd rather knit cardigans that have knit as you go button bands. The only exception would be if I fell in love with a design that had a button band that you had to pick up, then I would do it, and this was that, especially because I've had my eye on this one for a really long time. But speaking of knit as you go button bands, in case you missed it, I have created a bundle of all the cardigans that you guys have suggested to me and that I found myself with button bands that are knit as you go. So that'll be linked down below, and it's all on Ravelry if you're interested. And if you also don't like picking up button band stitches, then that might be a good resource for you. Okay, but back to this. I have a couple of other projects that I will kind of want to wrap up here that I'll be showing shortly after this. But once I get those wrapped up, I would love to pick this back up and either get going. I would love to get the button band going, or maybe pick up the sleeves and then also pick up the button band, and then that'd be kind of nice to just have them picked up and ready to go, and I can alternate between the button band and the sleeves. I don't think the sleeves will take very long. This is quite oversized and with a drop shoulder. The sleeve starts kind of far down, similar to this one. The sleeve started here, so it really reduces the amount of sleeve knitting you have to do when you have a big drop shoulder like that. So that is nice. But yeah, I do think I'm going to have to order more yarn. And when that happens, I kind of feel a little less motivated to work on a project, because then I know that I'll have to stop anyway to wait for the yarn to get here. And I could just order the yarn right now, but I'm not entirely sure how much extra yarn I'm going to need. So I'd rather knit until I run out and then just kind of guess how much I'll need after that based on what's left. But I really should get going on it just to see how much yarn I have left. And I want to wear this. I really want to start wearing this because it's just a really beautiful piece and I love the color. It's like soft, neutral, off-white with some heather. Like it looks pretty heathered and quite, like there's a lot of dimension in it. It's not just a flat beige. It's quite like specks of lighter white in there and then some off-white too. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of depth and dimension to this color, and it is 100% wool. It's not itchy to me. It's definitely next to skin soft, but this is a cardigan and I will be wearing it as a jacket a lot of the time, so I wouldn't have to worry about that anyway. I'm also going to be doing like the toggle style buttons. So I bought these the other day, and these are the buttons I'll be using. I think this wood color will look really pretty and just complement this nicely. I'm worried that this, I think it's coming off a bit more orange in camera than on real life. Yeah, hopefully it's not too orangey of a wood, but I think it's okay. I got this at Stash in Calgary if you're local, and amazing yarn store, just so beautiful in there, and they always have a lot of really good buttons. So they had only a couple of the toggle style. There's a dark wood and then this light wood, and I definitely had like a light wood in mind, but it is kind of yellowy and orangey. So I'm hoping that doesn't bother me, but again, if they do bother me, buttons can be changed, no problem. So that's not a big deal. This was my first time doing a lateral braid, and wow, for the life of me, I could not figure out the instructions on this pattern for how to do the lateral braid. There was written instructions, which just did not click in my brain whatsoever. And then there was a link to a tutorial from somebody else, I think, and that didn't click in my brain at all. I was so confused, and I was getting really angry, actually. Not at the pattern, not at the video, just I was thinking, why can't I understand this? And then eventually I found a different tutorial where it's actually, you do the lateral braid a little bit differently than what the designer was suggesting, because there are a couple of ways of doing it, and that way finally clicked with me. So I got there, but it was a little bit of a struggle. So the only thing with a lateral braid is you do go down in needle size for it, because your stitches can get quite like loose and gapey the row before the lateral braid, and the row after. And so you do go down in needle size for the row right before the lateral braid and the lateral braid itself, and then you go back to your original needle size. Now, I did that down here too, but I kind of wish I went down in needle side for the first row of ribbing, because you can kind of see it's a little bit gapey. And let me see if I can hold it up here without hitting my mic. I don't know if you can see that first row right here. It's definitely looser than the rest, and I wish I had gone down in needle side after that lateral braid, or just kept the smaller needle size for one more row and then gone back to the original needle size for the ribbing. So that's a little bit annoying. I can notice it for sure, but again, this hasn't been blocked. Maybe blocking will kind of help fill in those gaps a little bit. It's a little annoying, but it's not annoying enough for me to rip out by any means. It's probably just something that I would notice, to be honest, once wearing it and having everything else done. I doubt many people would notice, maybe other knitters, but I don't think anyone else would. I also did a tubular bind off, and I think it looks really good and nice finish to this. Now this yarn is definitely yarn that can break easily, so I had to be quite careful with that tubular bind off. It did break on me. I had about this much left to go on the ribbing, and then the yarn broke. And so all I did was do the spit splice method and get it back together. and was just quite careful with it since it was like still wet and I was tugging on it, so I had to be quite gentle with it. But overall it worked out. It's just you have to take a little bit more care when doing a tubular bind off with yarn that can break easily. And speaking of the spit splice method, I've just been doing that for joining in all of the new balls of yarn. Really love doing that. If it's possible, I'll always do that method. That just means less ends to weave in throughout the body. So of course I have my ends to weave in for when I'm breaking yarn, for picking up sleeves for the shoulders, and then also when I pick up sleeves for the arms, I'll have ends to weave in. But it's just nice knowing that when I'm adding in balls of yarn throughout the body that I don't have to do any extra weaving in of the ends. You know what I mean? And that's really nice. That's something I've kind of been doing a lot lately for any project that, or for any yarn that allows spit splicing. It's so nice to do. And I've also just been weaving in ends as I go on projects. And wow, what a game changer to not have like 20 ends to weave in at the end of your project and maybe just have like 2 or 3 is amazing. I highly recommend, and it makes the process just so more enjoyable for me. So yeah, that's been a nice thing I've been doing lately. But I'm very excited about this piece. It's really simple cardigan. If you're newer to knitting, newer to cardigans maybe, I think this is a good one to start with. You could always eliminate the lateral braid too if you didn't feel confident in that, although it's not hard. It just took me a moment to get my head to wrap around it. And yeah, but if you didn't want to do it, you could always replace it with just a purl row and then you get a similar effect. But yes, it's a very simple, easy pattern for beginner knitting. I'm trying to think if there were short rows. Oh gosh, I can't even remember. So much has happened in the last couple of weeks that I'm having a tough time remembering a lot of things. So were there short rows? Yes, there was short rows. There wasn't short rows. Typically when I'm doing a drop shoulder, there are short rows up here on the back panel or on the front shoulders. On this one, you do short rows after this lateral braid. So down below in the body, you do short rows, and it just extends this back here so it's not riding up. And when I put this on, it's nice and level, like the back doesn't ride up, and it isn't shorter than the front. So now it's just nice and flat. So yeah, that's a nice feature for sure. I think that's all there is to say about this pattern. Hopefully by the next time I film, I could have it done maybe, and I could be wearing it. Fingers crossed, that would be awesome. I would love to have that done. Okay, our next whip, oh, there we go. It's one I've shown before. Sorry, needles are hitting everywhere. Yeah, I've showed these before, and these are the Vaffla mittens by Maja Akerstrom. Really beautiful fingering weight colorwork mittens. I had one mitten done for a really long time, and I thought that's not okay. I need to get the second one on the needles, so here's the second. I have just a few more rows to finish the top. It'll be like that. That won't take long at all, and then I just have to pick up the stitches for the thumb. So these will be going to a friend of mine. She was saying how much she wanted some traditional mittens like this, and I thought, hey, I have some on my needles, why don't you take these ones? And she was more than happy to take them off my hands. She just really loved them, and they are definitely her colors, so very happy to be giving these to her soon. Not in too much of a rush with them, just because it's spring and I don't think she'll be using them until fall next year. But it's just nice to get done and off the needles, and I'm picking away when I can. I am using the Juniper Moon Farm Organic Merino from the Patagonia line. This one I bought myself. This is color, what color is this? 133 Acorn. And then this one was gifted to me from Knitting Fever, and this is color 148. So this is just, yeah, 100% organic merino. It's definitely a bit of a more rustic feel, but it's not itchy in my opinion. Yeah, this yarn isn't nichey at all in my opinion. It is 100% organic merino, And I do have a sweater knit out of this, and I can wear it next to skin, no problem. But again, these are mitts, so it doesn't really matter too much. But, there we go. When I first mentioned these on the channel here, the pattern had an error in it for the amount of stitches you should cast on. That error has since been fixed, so yeah, just a heads up if you're interested in it but put off by the error. The cast on number of stitches has been fixed, so they're good to go, and it's linked down below my project page. And I forgot to mention, but everything is linked down below to my Ravelry project page, and on that project page you'll be able to see details like the yarn colorways, the needle size for the most part, I think, and other things like that. And then, as always, if you have any other questions, just feel free to leave a comment and I'll answer as best as I can. But I really do enjoy knitting on these. It's one of those things that's just a pure work of art. I think they're so beautiful. They're really enjoyable, and the back's enjoyable too. It's a little bit more simple. You can kind of put your brain in neutral when you do the back, and then you got to pay a little bit more attention when you do the front. But it's a good balance between the both, and it's definitely helping me improve my colorwork knitting, which is something I've just been really obsessed with lately, and I've just been enjoying so much. I think colorwork knitting is such a beautiful thing, and it gives you so much opportunity to play with colors. So I definitely have a lot of colorwork knitting ideas and project ideas going around in my brain, and I want to focus a lot more on that this coming year, so I'm excited about that. We have one last whip, and these are just some vanilla socks that I casted on the other day. These are going to my sister, the same one that got the striped socks that I showed earlier, just because she's expressed how much she's loved her hand knit socks. So I thought I'm gonna stock her up with some socks, and yeah, I think that'll make her kind of happy. So these are vanilla socks in the Rico design color number 1. Just some fun, like more self-striping socks. I finished the first sock here. These are just 15 rounds of 2x2 ribbing, all stockinette, and I did the short row heel that I always do. These aren't blocked yet, so they're not really showing that well and not going into the shape that I want. And also, I think I knit these quite tightly, and so they're just like a really stiff, dense fabric. And I swear they could just like stand up on their own. They're that dense right now. But I'm hoping after blocking things will relax and the stitches will relax. But this is a really fun yarn colorway. Just some fun blocks of self-striping. There we go. That's less blown out there. So I have this one done, and then I'm just about done the second one. I have the heel done, and I've got about this much more to go until I'm done the socks. So I'm hoping to finish these up today and gift them to her, and finish them today, wash and block them, have them dry overnight, and then gift them to her tomorrow as a little surprise. So yeah. One thing I forgot to mention and that I love about these socks, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little hint of blue right there. And what that is I was knitting somewhat in the dark at her place last week. It was late at night. I could tell that there was a blemish or something on the yarn, but it was kind of dark. I wasn't going to turn the lights on. I was too tired. And I was like, what is that? Whatever, I'll keep knitting. I'll see it in the morning. And then the next morning I look at it, and it's this thread of like blue tulle almost. And I realized that my niece has a princess dress, like the Elsa princess dress that she loves to wear. She wears it almost every day. She just loves dressing up as a princess. And it was a strand of her princess dress, because it's kind of like falling apart a little bit, and so you'll get little pieces of like blue threads or that blue piece of tulle everywhere, and it made its way into this sock. And I just thought that that was so special. And it's really nice because now my sister has a little like piece and symbol of her daughter in her socks. And I love that a lot. I think that made these socks so much more special. And yeah, I think she'll really love that part of it too. Anyway, it was such a nice little thing to discover the next morning when I saw it and realizing that it was the Elsa dress in there. Okay, that's all the knitting that we have to talk about today. Before we wrap everything up though, I am going to put the winner of last episode's giveaway up on the screen. So if you are the winner, first of all, congratulations and thank you to all of you who commented and entered the giveaway. This winner here, I'll put the email address up on the screen. It'll also be linked down below in the description box. The only way that you'll be able to receive this gift is if you email me. So I will not be contacting you in any way. You just have to email the address on the screen and link down below. Let me know that you are the winner and then we'll talk throughout the details. And what you won is your own skein of my hand-dyed yarn, a skein of your choice. So yeah, thank you all so much for entering and congratulations to the winner. Yeah, please just get in contact with me. You'll have, let's say, 2 weeks from this day to get back to me. If I don't hear back from this person in 2 weeks, what is the day today? Oh goodness, what is the day? I think it's the 10th today. So that would be, let's say March 24th. Does that make sense? Yeah. March 24th. You have till March 24th to get back to me. If I don't hear from you by then, I'll draw another winner and we'll go through it again. But yeah, thank you all so much for participating in that giveaway. And we had a lot of comments and it was so nice reading all of those comments on the last video. In fact, a lot of them were just so kind and beautiful and really just warmed my heart and my soul. So thank you so much for all the lovely comments in my last video. It really brightened my day and my week. So yeah, thank you guys. You guys are all the best. And I appreciate all of you. I do have some other things I actually really wanted to share before we wrap up this video. And super random thing, but it's the coolest thing ever. And my mom has been going through her mom's craft room the last couple weeks or so. She actually passed away about 20 years ago. And we've gone, you know, through a lot of the stuff, or my mom and her sisters had gone through a lot of her stuff, but there's still some stuff in the craft room. Anyway, my mom came across some knitting patterns that my Nana had, and I thought I had to show all of you. And I was able to keep these patterns, and these are, I've got a little page here, just one pattern. It's gonna get blown out. It's a very old piece of paper. I have to be very delicate with it, but it's instructions for hand knitted service socks. So it's from Maitland Spinning Mills Limited in Listowel, Ontario. And this is the only sheet I have of it, but I believe it was just for, I'm not sure for which war, but it was to knit socks for people going off to war. So yeah, it's really cool to see this, and I've been reading through the instructions here, and for the most part, they're very similar to a lot of the vanilla socks that we all knit today. Slightly different. I think the toe is a little bit different too. The heel is the heel flap and gusset, but just slightly a little bit different, and it's just really cool to see the writing style and how simple the instructions were back in the day. So yeah, this was really cool. I have to tilt it in a way so that it doesn't get blown out. Oh, there we go. Doesn't get blown out by the light. So I have this one, and then I also have another very similar thing. It's knitting instructions for field comforts. The Imperial Order Daughters of the Empire, National War Service Committee, Toronto. It says 5 cents on here. This is also very I have to be very careful with this. It's falling apart. So there's the field comforts, the knitting instruction for field comforts. It says plain heavyweight sock. It says very easy to make. So there's a sock pattern in here. Then there's a heavy duty sock. And then there's seaman's stocking with double heel and flat toe. It says courtesy of Pattons and Baldwin's Limited. And then what else do we have here? There's instructions for a crew neck. Oh yeah, there's here, down here starts the crew neck sleeveless pullover. And that goes, I think, all the way to here. So just from this part to here are instructions for a sleeveless pullover. How crazy is that? It's like a paragraph long. That's nuts. That is so crazy. And then there's a V-neck sleeveless pullover. And that goes from here to here. Again, just like a paragraph worth of instructions. Then we have service scarves, a steel helmet cap. We've got ribbed balaclava helmet, rifle mitts, and then gunner's half mitts. So yeah, a little book of knitting instructions for field comforts. And there's actually, I just noticed, there's some little knitting notes on the bottom here. I think it says 8 stitches, 8-stitch row maybe. Very cool. I don't know whose these were in my family, but it's very cool to have like a piece of knitting, Canadian knitting history here. And yeah, just really cool to see the old instructions too, and how limited they were, and you know how we buy patterns now and they can be several pages. I just think back to my brick and mortar socks. That pattern is like 15 pages for socks, and then here we've got this much text that's this wide for an entire pullover. It's really crazy to see how much it's changed, but it's also just so cool. And it feels like, I don't know, knitting feels so cool, like you get connected to your ancestors and the history, and it's just, I like to think about it that way anyways. And yeah, I'll just rambling now. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool to see, and I'm so happy to have that in my craft room. I'm not sure what to do with them yet. They need to be properly stored, and I actually think it would be really cool to knit one of these patterns, or try to knit one of these patterns, at least like some of the socks maybe, or a balaclava or mitts. That would be cool. It's funny because the socks and the mitts have like 3 times more detailed instructions than the full pullovers do. So I think that's really funny. But yeah, anyways, I think in the future it'd be cool to try and knit something from this book. Okay, I'm going to end it there today. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you made it this far, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully I'll have another episode in the next week or 2. And yeah, happy knitting, happy making. We'll see you all next time. Bye.